Many, many times I have taught and spoken about the great distance between what we think and what we do, and what our thoughts are and what the actions are. Saying, in other words, the great distance between the brain and the heart. And in many, many cases, the brain, the intellect, understands what it needs to do, understands a certain concept, but the heart feels different, and for some reason, the brain cannot penetrate into the heart, and there's a great distance between the thought and the feelings. As they say in America, do you talk the talk, but do you walk the walk? Two different things. I gave many examples in the past. It can be about an individual that knows and understands that smoking is bad for his health, but still smokes. But you understand that it's bad for you. You know that it can cause diseases. Why do you smoke? I like it. I'm addicted. So, two different things. And then it can be with food. You can explain to a person, this type of food is bad for you. I understand. It's killing you. I know. So why you eat it? So comes the big question, how do you connect the two corners between what your mind understands and what your heart wants to do? Now really you see it very powerful in the last 2-3 years when things in the world changed a little bit. That people on the surface see something, understand something, but don't fall through. They don't follow. And like I said, you think, you understand, you know, you're noticing what's going on, but the heart doesn't let you take action. What bothers me the most in this respect is that, as they say again in America, maybe in other countries too, talk is cheap. Everybody talks about we need to be in unity and bring the redemption, and the bottom line is that all that I see is sinat chinam, is baseless hate. Talk is very easy. We need to love each other and respect each other and accept each other and see each other's differences, and there's a lot of talk going on. But when it comes to the bottom line, hate, jealousy, slandering, so what's the talk worth? It's worthless. So the bottom line, what we want to understand, and hopefully this class will get to the bottom of it and find a solution. How do you get results to get what's in your head and in your mind and your understanding to actually happen? So before we start, I just want to dedicate real quick the class Leilu Nishma, to the elevation of the soul of Dvorah Golda Bat Moshe. Her soul should have an elevation and find a great resting place in Gan Eden and be resurrected with the rest of the souls in Tchiat HaMetim very soon, along with anybody else who needs Aliyat Neshama, health, prosperity, and all the good things. In case you didn't know, we are in Parashat Yitro, very powerful parasha. We're going to read the 10 Commandments, Bezrat Hashem, this Shabbat. Very auspicious moment. Spiritually, what we read in this world happens in the spiritual world. So we're going to be experiencing in a spiritual level the receiving of the 10 Commandments. That's not something to ignore. In respect to the 10 Commandments, usually how things work is that if I tell you a list of orders, the first one will be the important one, the most important, and then it will decrease. And it can be in many different ways, but usually the first is the priority. That's why he said first. So comes a great, great question that was asked by many, many commentaries. What is the first commandment about? Commandments 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, very simple. Just follow orders. But the commandment, the first one, Anochi Havaya Elokecha, I can't really translate it. When I try to translate what the Torah says, it has no connection to the reality. If you look at the translation, it says, I am your Lord, I am the Lord your God. It has nothing to do with Anochi Havaya Elokecha. But nevertheless, what is Hashem telling us? This is the first commandment. This is the first time that God reveals himself to the entire world, speaks to the entire world. Everybody hears God's voice, and God is telling us, Anochi Havaya Elokecha. I am the Lord your God. And again, the translation is not accurate, because Anochi is a representation of the highest of all levels of godly revelation. Havaya Yud Kei Vav Kei, a lower godly revelation. Elokecha, Elokim, the revelation in this world. 3 levels of godly revelation, how Hashem will present himself. But we're not going to go now and analyze these 3 names, these 3 words. Rather, we want to understand, why is this the first commandment, and what is Hashem telling me? Hashem is telling me I'm your God. Okay, I figured that out. Later on, of course, it continues, that I took you out of Egypt. That's, the continuation of this verse is what brings many to the question whether the 10 Commandments is spoken directly to the Jewish nation or to the whole world, to all the nations, because only the nation of Israel was in Mitzrayim. So one might say on the surface, okay, it's only referring to the Jews, to Bnei Israel, the children of Israel. But nevertheless, Mitzrayim, we came to the conclusion many times that it's not necessarily a geographic country. Mitzrayim is a state of mind, is a state of limitation, therefore it applies to everybody. But this is not what we're going to discuss today. I want to know, what is Hashem, what is God trying to tell me in the first commandment with the fact that He is the Lord and He is our God? Because really, when you're looking at the commandment, Hashem is commanding us that we should believe in Him. Does that not make sense? To command me to believe in Him. And you know why it doesn't make sense? If I believe in Him, I don't need to be commanded. And if I don't believe in Him, the commandment is not going to work. It doesn't make sense. It's almost like me now, running to be the prime minister, and I command you all to vote for me. But you're not even we don't even know who you are. How are you going to command me to vote for you when you're not even elected? So how is God telling me, I'm commanding you to believe in me? Doesn't make sense. The commandment is only when there's belief in the commandment. Right? Makes sense what I just said? So what's the purpose of this commandment? That God is telling me, I am the Lord, your God, etc., etc. Okay. Simple explanation by Maimonides, by Rambam. He says, Lakachat emunot velachnis lalev. To take the belief and to penetrate it in the heart. That's what Rambam says. Besides the fact that Rambam holds that this is the first commandment in the Torah, in the list of commandments by Rambam, that's the first commandment number 1, and mitzvah number 1, in the list of the 613 mitzvot. The problem is that between the mind and the heart there's a great distance. You can think one thing, and it doesn't really happen. And that can be taken to almost any part of your life. You understand you need to wake up in the morning to go and pray, but it doesn't work. You don't wake up you wake up at 11. You understand you need to go on a healthy diet because chas v'shalom, it affects your health, but nothing changes. You still eat junk. And that will continue to almost any part of your life. And the problem is, and that's really the depth of this issue, and that's why I repeat it over and over in so many different classes, that deep down inside, you're lying to yourself. On the surface, you're brushing it off. But deep down inside, when you're by yourself, As I told you many times in the series of lectures in Sha'arei Kedusha, what we're going to learn later, how did I say in the last few classes? Who are you kidding? That was my mantra when I would look in the mirror 20 years ago, starting to become observant, and I would look in the mirror and say, who are you kidding? You might be kidding other people. You're not fooling yourself. You're definitely not fooling Hashem. So the problem is that deep down inside, in this type of situation, you know that you are lying, whether it's for yourself or to other people. This is a big, big problem in the foundation of Emunah. And I hear it every day, dozens of times. A lot of people dress the part, but distance like Shamayim va'aretz, heavens and earth, between the appearance and the actions. And the major problem, as I said and will continue repeating, is that when it comes to my personal growth and my personal attention to myself, is who are you kidding? Why are you pretending? You talk a lot of people talk very strong, very powerful, very loud, but the tachlis, what's the tachlis? Tachlis means, well, what's the bottom line? And like I told you, most people lie to themselves. I told you that many, many times. People don't like hearing it. I say to people straight out to your face. And I was like that, exactly the same. And when I really look to work on myself, to refine myself, is about being 100% honest, truthful with myself. Because the entire foundation of this world is truth. I mean, this entire world is called by our sages the world of lie, the world of deception, alma de shikra. Everything here is a lie. Well, not everything. 99% of everything that you see in this world is a lie. We just experienced the ground shaking a few days ago, right? Were you up at 3 in the morning? I felt the house shaking backwards and forth. It was pretty intense. Now it's coming up to the surface, and I said that the second that it happened, I told it to my wife. I told that's not an earthquake. That's a man-made earthquake. This is not a real earthquake. And sure enough, 3 days later, all the junk starts surfacing with all sorts of little proofs. And if you follow what I say for the last few years, I told you last year, no more pandemics. We're done with that show. The next coming year will be natural disasters. Remember I told you that? And that's what we have. Only natural disaster. Natural. It's not natural. It's disasters in the disguise of natural, made by man. So, most of what you see in front of you is shekel. And now, in the last 3 years, the majority of the population of this world are starting to figure out that what you've been fed for the last 4,000 years, 99% of it is a lie. That's the essence of this world, alma de shikra, the world of deception, the world of distortion, the world of lie. But the truth of the existence of all worlds, or as we call the world above, olam ha'emet. Why do we call the world above olam ha'emet, the world of truth? Because there doesn't exist even in the world above. When I'm saying above, not above me in the second floor, I'm talking about the spiritual worlds. There's no such thing as deception or a lie in the spiritual world. Not even 1 ounce of sheker, of deception, of lie exists in the spiritual world. There's no such a thing. That's why it's called olam ha'emet. There's only truth there. 3 times a day we chant, we say, Karov Hashem lechol kroav, lechol asher yikreu be'emet. Hashem is close to the ones who call Him truthfully. You can translate that in Hebrew in many different ways, because be'emet can be also really. But Hashem tells you in other words, you want me to be close to you? You have to be emet. 100% emet, truthful. Model emet. You know how hard that is? To be 100% truthful? And where is it the most difficult? That you have to be truthful with yourself. To look in the mirror and say, who am I kidding? Who am I kidding? I lie to everybody. I pretend. I come off as nice and courteous and polite, and I'm not. The other day somebody told me, I want you to meet somebody, you're going to love them. I said, why would I love them? Why are you coming to the assumption I'm going to love them? Why? Excuse me, I don't love most people. I'm nice, polite. I don't like most people. Why would that specific person, oh, you're going to love them? No, I don't think so. I told you last week a very special story from the Gemara. I will repeat the story, okay? The story is with Abaye. Abaye is one of the most dominating figures in the Gemara. There's a story that he went on a journey, kind of similar to today when you travel, you go to an airport, you go to a train station, you go to the bus station. There was probably some place where people met and went together on a journey to escort each other, to go on the same route, not to chas v'shalom be attacked by robbers or whatever. Danger was on the way. So he goes and he starts walking on the journey, and he sees in front of him a man and a woman walking, and as they're walking, they're talking to each other, and right away he figured it out that that's not a husband and wife. So he said to himself, I will walk behind them, that if chas v'shalom, something immoral will happen between both of them, I will jump in and stop the opportunity from sinning. As the journey ends, the two people, the man and the woman, politely say to each other, it was a pleasure to spend the hour with you, and they went on their way. And then Abaye got a reality check. He got very upset at himself. And he says, look at these couple. I, the great Abaye, thought not clean thoughts, that they might hook up, they might do a sin, they're not even married, and they were innocent, they were pure, no thoughts between them. They just accompanied each other in a nice, innocent way. And he couldn't fathom how come they are so innocent and pure, and I'm the great sage thinking, oh, maybe they're going to do something together and I'm going to have to stop them. And saying in other words, he figured out, I'm worse than them. The Talmud says that he went home and he didn't even go into the house. He stayed outside and leaned on the doorpost. It says, Beruach hadelet, he didn't even want to go in. Last week, if you remember when I told you the story, the understanding from that we were talking about how to control your thoughts, that you leave the thoughts outside. Remember? The story continues that Eliyahu Navi comes to him and tells him, why are you so upset, Abaye? Why are you upset? Kol hagadol michavero, kach yitzor gadol mimeno. The more you grow spiritually, the more greater you are, your yetzer hara grows with you. You're looking at a great sage, a great rabbi, a great individual. The yetzer hara is just as great as his greatness. So I don't think, sometimes you're looking at a great rabbi, you're saying, oh, he doesn't have a yetzer hara. Wrong. His yetzer hara is as strong as he is spiritual. Which means the more you grow, the yetzer hara grows to be equal to you. You don't put a 90-kilo fighter into a ring with a 50-kilo fighter. It has to grow in the same respect. So you're becoming a great sage. Abaye, your yetzer hara is just as great as you. Why are you getting so upset, Abaye? Says to him Eliyahu Navi. Comes a big question. Why outside? Why did Abaye stand outside? Go inside the house. Make yourself a cup of tea. Sit quietly, comfortably on your couch. Then do your cheshbon nefesh, your introspection. Why are you standing outside in the cold? Abaye feels that he stayed outside. That's what it is. Saying in other words, with all the talk, it's easy to talk. It's very easy to talk about truth, but very, very hard to live that way. Abaye felt that he stood outside. He stayed outside. It's like a preacher, a rabbi that speaks musar and talks and bangs on the table and goes home and does exactly what he says not to do. And we are under the impression many times we're standing in front of a great speaker that hits us on the head what we should do and what we shouldn't do. And how little do we know? Maybe he has the same problem. Maybe he's dealing with the same problem. It's very easy to give musar, to talk about truth. But to live your life like truth, not so easy. Not so easy. As we learned in last week, לעולם יהיה אדם ירא שמיים בסתר כבגלוי. Right? We learned that in Sha'arei Kedusha. Remember? I hope you follow the classes. I'm not sleeping here. That's how we started last class's gate. לעולם יהיה אדם ירא שמיים בסתר כבגלוי. It's a paragraph that we say every morning in Shacharit. A person should always be God-fearing when he's by himself, like he pretends when he's next to people. Next to people, you're very religious. How religious are you? How much emunah do you have when you're behind closed doors? Whole different individual. So, in respect to Abaye, he felt that he's outside. Talk the talk, no walk the walk. I'll tell you another story. I'll tell you another two stories in this respect so we can get the point and move on. There's a story about a certain individual whose name was Yosele, that Erev Yom Kippur, he was known to be the thief of the village. Everybody, Yosele would come close, start gathering their things, not to chas v'shalom, make him disappear something. Erev Yom Kippur, he comes to the rabbi and tells him, Rabbi, it's Erev Yom Kippur, comes with 3 boxes, says, this is all the stuff that I stole in the last year. Here, please take it, call the people, their owners, and I want you to give it to them. Wow. The rabbi is touched. I cannot believe it. What tshuva Erev Yom Kippur. Unbelievable. And he wishes him off with a great blessing and wishes, and as Yosele walks out, the rabbi looks on the table and says, wait, I had a gold watch here on the table. The gold watch my wife bought me for our anniversary. Wait, he runs out to Yosele. What, you steal my gold watch? He says, listen, tshuva, Yom Kippur is one thing, but I need to live off something. So, same respect. Talk the talk, but when the hand of the thief sees the gold watch, the opportunity, with all the tshuva, takes it. We are all this Yosele. Talk the talk, but we don't walk the walk. And again, I'm not now blaming anybody or judging anybody. I've been to difficult situations myself. I'm presenting the situation right now. Don't get so emotionally offended by what I'm saying. Okay? Wait till the end. Next story, maybe or may not, you have heard it, with Rabbi Yonatan Ivshitz, that once he was called to debate with great scholars, philosophers, and spiritual leaders of that generation. The debate was held in the city of Prague. He goes there, and what was the major topic of the debate is if the mind can be trained to do anything. And when they wanted to present the situation, everybody's sitting in the room, the door opens, a cat walks out on 2 legs, holding a tray, and there's hors d'oeuvres on the tray, and the cat goes around and gives the hors d'oeuvres. Everybody's, wow, unbelievable, you can train a cat to be a waiter. And the fact is, you can take many animals and train them to do a lot of things. The proof is, you can teach almost anything to do whatever you want, right? Rabbi Yonatan says, no, it's very easy to train the cat. All he did is he opened a little box, took a little mouse out, threw the mouse on the floor. The second the cat see the mouse, threw the tray, threw everything, started running after the mouse. He says you can be a cat waiter till you see the mouse. Okay? Same thing here. Very easy to be trained to think a certain way, to pretend, to act, but the second you see the mouse, that's it. You lose your focus, you run after the mouse. This is all to bring us to the point to understand that the distance between my intellect and my mind and my brain, what I understand, is far away, like the distance from the heavens till the earth between what's in my heart. I can pretend that I like somebody and Avat Israel from here till tomorrow, but in my heart I cannot stand this individual. And I smiled, oh, you look amazing today, you did so great. So how do we not only bring it close to each other. How can we tie the knot here when you take a rope and cut it in half? How do you put it back together? So let's go back to the topic where we started. We are reading the Ten Commandments. According to the Midrash, we are going back to the letter Aleph. That's what the Midrash says. Why are we going back to the letter Aleph? Because the Torah was created with the letter Bet. And for so many years, what started the Torah was Bet. Bereshit bara Elokim tashamayim v'et haaretz. Right? In the beginning, the Master of the universe created the heavens and the earth. Now we're going back to Aleph. It says in the Midrash, 26 generations, the letter Aleph was upset. Why? Was saying to Hashem, where am I? Why did the Torah skip me? Hashem told the letter Aleph, don't worry. The great honor and respect is saved to you. To when? The Ten Commandments. Anochi Hava Elokecha. That's when the Aleph will get its respect. As I told you before, Rambam says that the first positive mitzvah in the Torah is Anochi Hava Elokecha, which says that you need to understand that everything, you need to believe, that everything comes from Hashem. Okay. Anochi, the word Anochi equals a positive mitzvah to mean to believe in Hashem, that everything is from Hashem. Okay, comes a big question. How can you command me to believe if I don't believe? If I don't believe, you can't command me to believe. And if I believe, you don't need to command me. But yet, that's what Rambam says. If you're looking at the order of the mitzvot, according to the Rambam, the first mitzvah is to believe in the existence of God, that everything comes from Hashem. There is a book, it's called Halachot Gdolot. This book was written approximately 1100, 1200 years ago. There is a debate who actually wrote it. Many, they believe, wrote it a certain individual called Rabbi Shimon Kaira. But the Smag and Rashi, Smag is the Sefer Mitzvot Gdolot, also written by Rabbi Moshe Mikutzi. The Smag and Rashi, they say no, it's Rabbi Yehudai Gaon who wrote it. So there's a different argument who actually wrote the book, but the Sefer Hilchot Gdolot is really the first book that writes down in an organized way all the 613 mitzvot. If you're looking in that book, the first mitzvah, it's not Anochi. He writes completely different. But he's before Rambam. He says, Emunah ze lo mitzvah. Emunah, belief, is not a mitzvah. It's way before the mitzvot. It cannot be written as a mitzvah. Emunah precedes the mitzvot. The mitzvot, they come after you believe. If you don't believe, you're not going to do the mitzvot. I mean, you might be forced to do one or two mitzvah. But if you don't have emunah, if you don't believe in Hashem, you're not going to do anything. And you can see that the majority of the world, they're not doing anything. Which is interesting, because if you analyze about the belief of God, in many different surveys and checks that they did, they came to the conclusion that 85% of the population of this world believe that there's a creator. Which means 8.5 people out of 10 believe that there's some power, doesn't matter how they call it right now, a power, a spiritual power that preceded the creation of the world and is responsible for the creation of the world. But yet, you see that the majority are not really actively serving the Master of the universe. So believing in God is one thing, believing in some power, and many faiths will call it different ways. Some will call it, I believe in nature, Mother Nature, higher power, whatever they call it. But doesn't matter. 85% of people believe that there's something beyond us, something greater. So according to the Halachot HaGdolot, Emunah is not a mitzvah because the mitzvot, they come after you believe. If you don't believe, you're not going to do anything. I told you that many years ago, my sister calls me. I lived at the time in America. and she tells me, I have great news, I'm coming to visit you. Okay, fine. When are you coming? For Pesach. Pesach? From all the time, all the dates on the calendar, that's when you decide to come, in the most difficult holiday of the year. Now bear in mind that my daughter, my sister is not observant 150%. And there's not even 1 ounce of belief in Hashem in her. She thinks I'm completely crazy. I told you when I became observant, when I became religious and I started telling the family, she took it the worst. And she even told me, is this something temporary or it's going to stay? I said, it's going to stay. So she told me, well, I'm going to sit Shiva on you. I said, well, at least that's a Jewish custom. So, but she really doesn't believe in anything. I don't want to say atheist, but now she's telling me she's coming to Pesach. Now how am I going to deal with that? I was young in my path in Tshuva. I called my rabbi, what should I do? My sister, secular husband, secular kids, they want to come to spend Pesach with me. I can't afford them in my house now with chametz and all the restrictions. And so he tells me, listen, it's an opportunity, invite her, tell her a few basic rules, tell her what she can do, what she can't, but it's an opportunity that you're going to inspire her and get her to do mitzvot and celebrate the holiday. Jump on the opportunity. Okay, so we jump on the opportunity, she comes, and I told her, listen, we're very observant, you need to follow a few sets of rules. You can't bring chametz into the house, you can't do this, you can't do that, but amazing, bemet, it was unbelievable. In that week, we put tzitziot on her boys. She lighted candles the first time in her life. They ate matzah, they drank wine. I mean, it was a great boot camp. Comes the end of the Pesach. We peel all the covers from the walls. And we decided to go buy ice cream to the kids. So my sister and me go on a drive. We go to buy ice cream and we have a heart-to-heart talk. And then she tells me, tell me, you know, I just spent like a week with you now, and you really believe in all this nonsense? I said, you know, you just experienced now the most extreme week in the year where we are careful not to even think of chametz. We peel tomatoes that chas v'shalom, maybe chametz, touch the peel. You saw fanatic in its extreme. And you're asking me if I believe in this nonsense? What do you think, at the end of the week somebody sends me a $10,000 check? This is only emunah. There's no common sense here in this holiday. It's only emunah. I don't need to be commanded or to be some way reimbursed. This is 100% emunah. Nobody goes to that extreme if they don't believe. So how can you tell me that you're going to command me to believe? If I don't believe, the commandment won't do anything. And if I do believe, I don't need to be commanded. I will be gladly doing it. So Rambam is holding that the first mitzvah, Anochi Havai Elokecha, is to believe that everything is from God. How can you command me such a thing? I'm actually going now with the Ilchot Gdolot and many others that totally disagree with Rambam and says, no, that cannot be a mitzvah. How can emunah be a mitzvah? Emunah is faith. I believe in God. The mitzvah will come after. Why do people choose to believe that there's something greater than them? That all the checks, surveys, and questionnaires show 85% of the population of the world believes in a creator? Because to the answer of many, it's easy. When you have belief, you put all the guilt, all the problems, all the worries, you put on something else. There's an explanation for everything. God decided, it was God's decision. It's very easy. It's like a easy way out. You put everything on God. All your problems, why did he die? That was God's will. Why did the business didn't work out? That was God's will. It's very easy. You have an answer for everything, right? The fact is that it's the complete opposite. It's not easy when you believe. It actually is much harder when you have emunah. It's much easier to ignore the reality. When you actually believe in God, it takes much more responsibility. It's much, much harder when you have emunah. So like I told you, most of the commentaries disagree with Rambam about the fact that Anochi Hava Elokecha is the first positive commandment, and that's to believe in God. Saying, in other words, how you can command somebody to believe. It's almost kind of on the same level how we read Shema Yisrael every day. Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. How can you force me to love God? I either love Him or I don't. I am commanded to love. No. You cannot make me do something. You cannot command me if I don't believe in the commandments. If I don't believe in the commandments, I'm not going to do them. If I believe in the commandments, I'll do them with all my heart, and then I don't need to be commanded. So what's the meaning if we're holding now with two opinions? On one side we have Rambam, the other side most of the commentaries disagree with him. So what is the meaning of Anochi Hava Elokecha? That's the first commandment. I understand lo tirtzach. I understand not to kill. You don't have to explain that to me. Not to commit adultery, not to lie, not to bear false witness. I understand all that. Honor your parents. All this is simple to understand. What is Anochi Hava Elokecha? What's the commandment here? If you're telling me the commandment is to believe in God, then I just told you. How can you command me to believe in something? So what is Hashem telling me here? And why is that the first commandment? So we have a challenge. We have a challenge in our life. How do I connect the mind and the heart? I told you that in many different classes, in many different ways, that if you look at the shape of our body, we have here like a head, this lump, and there's a brain in there. Not in all the cases it works. But there's a brain in there, and that's the intellectual part. I understand, I can perceive, I can put two things together. And then there's like a little stick that's connecting the head to the body, another lump, and in that body is a heart. And in the heart I have all my emotions. I love, I hate, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm upset, I have fear, I have joy. Somebody's afraid of something, can you command them not to be afraid? You're happy, you feel joy, can you tell somebody, stop being happy? I feel the pain, I feel the happiness, it's emotions. Now what happens is that between the head, the intellect, and the body, the connection is so narrow that you can pull down the mochin, the intellect, into the midot, into the heart, into your emotions. I told you already many times that Amalek, one of the things that Amalek wants to do is to grab you by the neck and not to let the intellectual part penetrate into the heart. To disconnect between the two. What I understand, that's one thing. What I do, total different thing. So now we have a great challenge that I challenge this every day. And if I have this challenge, you have this challenge too. How do I connect what I understand in my mind very clearly to what's in my heart? I understand very clearly that it's very wrong to slander another person, but I still slander him. And I understand it's unhealthy to eat a certain food, but I still eat it. Why? It's tasty. And I understand many things, but how to bring it into my heart, I have a challenge. Let's go back for a second to Rambam. Rambam says that the first commandment, he only uses one word. Lida. Not Lamed Yud Daled Hey, birth. Leida. Lida. Lamed Yud Daled Ain. To know. What do I need to know? Sheyesh Matzui Rishon. That there's something that is preceding everything, and there's one, or let's call it the first existence, talking about God. That's the first commandment by Rambam, that I have to know that there's something that is existing first. I came way after. Now if I came way after, it means something created me. Saying in other words, the approach of Rambam is take your emunah and penetrate it into your heart. Because emunah not necessarily is anchored into your heart. So I'm sure I'm going to tell you now a story. It's irrelevant right now if it's a real story or not. I was introduced to the story through a video. Now with TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and all these the rest of the networks, there's these short videos. If I dare to put a video on YouTube that is 3 hours, nobody will watch it. If it's 4 minutes, everybody will watch it, right? Because the finger needs to go fast like that. So now everything is presented with videos, which is genius, by the way. So there's a famous video, that's how I was introduced to the story. And you see a man that he's sitting in an airport on a table, and there's a person in front of him, and the person is eating from a bag, cookies. And the person in his mind is like, that's my bag of cookies. Why are you eating my cookies? And the guy's enjoying the cookies and eating them one after the other, and he's like, I can't believe it. This guy stole my bag of cookies, and he's eating it. Now when the guy sees him eating it, he offers him, you want one? And he's like, he took my cookies, and now he has the nerve to offer me one of my cookies, and he's going berserk. Then he boards the plane, he opens his bag, and what does he see? The same bag of cookies. And he says, oh my gosh, the whole time I thought he stole my cookies, and how dare he offer me a cookie, and really he was a nice guy. So most of you are nodding. I'm assuming you saw that video. That's how I saw it. Okay, video is maybe a minute or two. Later on, I actually read this story somewhere else, but it's irrelevant. The point from this little short video is that the heart is what you think. Okay? The emotion that will rise up in your heart is what's going on in your mind. He was upset with the person taking his cookies because that's what he understood. Then he had anger. Once he understood, it wasn't even, it was the other way around. It wasn't anger. It was like appreciation and awe. Wow, he was nice to me. Every emotion holds in it the thought that you had. That's how it works. I'll say it again. I'll quote in Hebrew and then I'll explain again. Kol regesh mekapel betocho techuna. Every emotion is wrapped around something that you understood. If you want to change the emotion, you have to go to the emotion and negotiate and speak to the emotion. I explain to you what I'm talking about. There's a story, and this one is a real story. That there was a man, a businessman, that used to travel every day from New Jersey to New York. And one time he leaves his place of work, he boards the train, and he wants to sit quietly, an hour ride on the train. He wants to whatever, read his book or whatever. Boards on the train a father and a few kids, and the kids are screaming and fighting and making a mess, and everybody in the car is like, wow. Then the kids start throwing things at each other and making a mess on the train. At some point the man gets upset. He walks up to the father and he tells him, listen, this is unacceptable. You know, I've been working the whole day. I'm up since 6 in the morning. Your kids are making noise here. They're disturbing everybody. Look, everybody's uncomfortable. Talk to your kids. Calm them down. This is totally unacceptable. The father turns around and says, I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry. I don't know what to tell them to calm them down. We just came back from their mother's funeral and I don't know how to approach them. The man doesn't know what to bury himself. He felt so uncomfortable. He pulls out some money from his pocket. He gives to the kids. Says, kids, when you get off the train, buy yourself something a treat or something. There's a professional term, I don't know how you say it in English. I will have to explain to you in Hebrew. and translate and explain. In Hebrew, this term is called Efrat. Efrat is a common name, a girl's name in English. It's also a yeshuv called Efrat. But what's Efrat? It's an acronym. Erua Parshanut Regesh Tevuna. Okay? It's an acronym of 4 words. Aleph for Efrat is Erua. Erua means an event. There's an event. Then what's going to be the next step? The pay, the Parshanut. How I interpret, the interpretation of what I see. Then will come the Reish, the Regesh, the emotion will be birthed from my interpretation. And the last, the Taf, is Tguva, my reaction, my response. Take the story on the train. There was an event. Kids are making noise. Comes an interpretation. The father is not educating them. He's not putting them in their place. The kids are wild. Then comes an emotion, anger or frustration. And then will come, of course, the reaction, the father going on. If the interpretation would be different, the emotion would be completely different. Right? So it's seemingly that the event creates an emotion, but in between there's interpretation. So really, what's my emotion? An interpretation of something that I perceive. Who says that it's right? Who says that I need to be angry? Who says that I need to be upset, jealous, judgmental, sad, happy? I'm seeing an event right now. I'm interpreting it. Who says the interpretation is the right interpretation? Le'olam hevedan kol adam lekav zchut. Right? That's what the Mishnah says in Tractate Avot. In the ethics of the father, always judge a person favorably. You don't know what happened. You don't know what's going on in front of you. So now I'm dealing with an emotion, anger, sadness, frustration, jealousy, happiness, joy, whatever. That's because of an event. And according to my interpretation, and then my tguva, my reaction will be accordingly. Can you imagine how everything in life now changes its reality? Now I'm telling you already, you see an event, whoa, hey, this is subject to interpretation. Your interpretation would lead you to feel a certain way. Wow. Let's go back to our question. What is Anochi? Forget about the translation, I'm the Lord. Anochi, the first word in the commandments, is to bring interpretation to your emotion. That's Anochi. That's what Hashem wants from me. He's not commanding me to fear Him or to observe His mitzvot. He's telling me, before you developing emotion, bring interpretation, the right interpretation into it. Therefore, when Rambam says Anochi is the first positive mitzvah, a mitzvah to believe in Hashem, Rambam is saying Lida. Lida means feel. Develop emotion, develop sensitivity, develop a feeling. To know that there's a creator, 85% of the population of the world knows there's a creator. They don't do anything about it. Most of them. To know is one thing, but to develop some type of an emotion of love, admiration, joy, happiness, or negative, then you need to develop it. And that will come from an interpretation. And that's really the connection between the knowing and the emotion. That's the connection between the intellect and the heart. And why is that so important? Because I told you that's a challenge that we have every day on a daily basis. Everybody. And if you're now saying to yourself, I don't have this challenge, then you have this challenge quadruple times. If you're in denial saying, I don't have this challenge. Everybody has this challenge of connecting what you understand to how you react. We need to not only know, we need to feel Hashem. We need to feel Hashem in my life. That's what Rambam says, that is commanding us to believe in Him. Hashem is not commanding us, Hashem is telling us, develop the feeling. Feel that I am your God. Feel that I'm around you. Do you feel that Hashem is around you? Some will say, yes, of course. The majority will say, I will say yes to sound very sophisticated, but really at times I don't feel. You know when you don't feel Hashem around you? When things don't work out. Suddenly you don't feel Hashem around you. When things are going smooth, Hashem is the best God. But when you get turned down by the bank, a date doesn't work out, chas v'shalom, things don't work your way, suddenly you don't feel Hashem. Talk the talk, but do you walk the walk? What do you think, Hashem is going to cover you all day long and make your life easy and great and successful? Well, there's no challenge here. Hashem hides Himself because He wants you to overcome this challenge. So Hashem is putting difficulties in your life. So you will feel the absence of Hashem in your life, and then you're really not fulfilling the first commandment of Anochi Avai Elokecha, when Hashem is telling you, even in the hard times, I need you and I want you to feel me around you. There's a big difference between what you think and what you feel and what you believe and understand. There's a great story with Mr. Wiesel he survived the Holocaust. And he says a story, there's a story here, I think he was in Hungary, I don't remember where he was originally from, when the Nazis, Yimach Shemam, came, shot his mother and his sister in front of him and his father, took him and his father to a work camp. They were both like strong men. And at some point the father got very sick and eventually was very, very sick. One night he whispered to him to bring him some water. The Nazi guard heard it, came in, shot him in his head right in front of him. And soon after, he was called to one of the cabins, and there were 3 great rabbis there. Of course, you would never tell that they were great rabbis, they were all shaven, but they were very, very high-level rabbis in that generation, and they said, we are forming a Beit Din, and we need you to be a witness for the prosecution. We are suing the Master of the Universe. This is unacceptable. This should not happen. And they made a whole trial, and they subpoenaed him to testify what he saw as a child. His mother and sister got shot in front of him. The father got shot. What the atrocities that he went through. They sued the Master of the Universe. They took the Master of the Universe to Beit Din. And according to them, they won. And how did the whole event finish? Oh, the star's out. We got to pray Ma'ariv. What? You just sued the Master of the Universe. You took him to Beit Din. The second you finish, we have to pray Arvit. They said, yeah, what's the connection? The fact that you are obligated to do the mitzvot, we understand, we believe, we do that. But we still have the zchut, the right, to disagree with certain things. Rambam tells you, you need to know and feel the Master of the Universe. Now that's the question. You need to go home now. Do I feel the Master of the Universe around me at every given moment? When things go well, yes, you are very happy. Maybe sometimes in some holy site or a holy day, you feel some excitement, you feel. But when things don't go well, when you're not having such a great time, not great success in what you want, things don't work how you want, you're dealing with a lot of challenges that you don't wish like dealing with them, especially when you want to do good. Sometimes you want to do good. And Hashem puts on you so much pressure, financial pressure, emotional pressure, health pressure. Just yesterday I spoke to a young lady who told me she has financial struggles and she cannot find her other half. So, I told her, when you feel these moments of despair, go and pray. She was like, you really think I can pray when I have financial burden and worries and anxieties? How am I going to pray? Now, what comeback do you have for that? I agree with you. You can't really pray, you can't really learn Torah quietly with yeshuv adat, with great focus, when you have worries. The landlord knocking on the door, you didn't pay rent for 3 months, the bank is calling, credit card is calling. How can you really serve? I want to serve Hashem. So Anochi Havai Elokecha, Rambam tells you, I want you to feel Hashem at any given moment. When you are feeling Hashem at any given moment, first of all, you don't need to be commanded to do anything. You just do it voluntarily. But Hashem tells you, I'm not commanding you to do my mitzvot. I'm telling you that I want you to feel my existence in your life. So that's the question you need to ask yourself. Now when you go home, do I feel Hashem all the time in my life? Then the answer will probably be no. Don't kid yourself, and let's not go back to what I told in the beginning, that you lie to yourself. Yeah, of course I feel Hashem all the time. Don't lie to yourself, be true to yourself. There's moments in your life that you don't really feel the love of Hashem. I hope for you that you do, but the reality is that when we struggle, we don't. So how do you do that? How do you make this happen? So there are 2 ways. The first way, I will use a non-Jewish term, but it's called a mantra. The non-Jewish world did not invent the mantras. Rather, it comes from the Torah. We chant every day repetitively certain verses. That's a mantra. To kind of repeat it in my mind and kind of carve it in my mind. That's what you have to do. You start with that. Why? Because that's how you start refining the dirt around the emunah, so the emunah, your belief and trust, will become stronger. What's the most common, and I think the most powerful one, is the second you wake up in the morning, you say 13 words. Most people say it in the speed that you can't even understand what they're saying, if they even remember to say it. But when many great tzaddikim were asked, they said that's the most important prayer, or we'll call it now the mantra of the day. You sit for a second. Modeh ani lefanecha. I hereby thank you, O Lord. And by the way, modeh in Hebrew means to admit, not only to thank. So when I say modeh ani lefanecha, I admit you are the one, I'm secondary. You are the God, I am the slave. Melech chai v'kayam, to a true living God, shechzarta binishmati, that you gave me back my soul, which means I have a soul. There was a situation that maybe you wouldn't give it back. You know what that means? You know the halakha explains, and many other interpretation says, that the modeh ani lefanecha says, in other words, that God trusts you. God has trust in you, and He gave you back your soul because He knows you need to do something with it. Shechzarta bi nishmati, you trust in me. Bechemla rabba emunatecha, that you believe in me. God believes in me. If He wouldn't believe in me, He would say, just stay up there. Don't wake up. But God wakes me up, gives me back my soul. I have to meditate on the fact, wow, God believes in me, and He knows that I have to do something today. Which means don't waste your day on nonsense. I have to do something, make the day worthwhile. But when you focus on that, that's for you a mantra. That's for you a prayer, a repetition. We say every day so many things. Over and over. I mean, in many different faiths and rituals, the mantra might be a sound. Our mantras is psukim, is verses that we repeat over and over. Shakol niya bidvaro. That's a mantra, by the way. I eat something, I drink something, I say a blessing. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam. Shakol niya bidvaro. Say that 100 times a day. You carving in your knowledge. Shakol niya bidvaro. Everything is done with His word. He commanded it. So I'm polishing my emunah all the time, constantly. Most people, like I told you, they don't focus on the words. They might say the blessing very fast, whether it's Shakol niya bidvaro, modeh ani lefanecha, asher atzarta adam b'chokhmah, they just say it autopilot. It's not a real blessing. When you go out of the bathroom and you say Asher Yatzar, most people say it so fast, there's no meaning to it. There's no feeling. You don't really stop and say Asher Yatzar et Adam b'chokhmah. Wow, that God created man in great wisdom. Nekavim, nekavim, with a lot of holes. Chalulim, chalulim, they're hollow. I mean, I know it's time consuming, so instead of 17 seconds, it will take you 53 seconds. To watch junk on Facebook, you spend 3 hours a day. To say Asher Yatzarta Adam b'chokhmah, a minute and 13 seconds, that it's hard. But these are the mantras that we repeat. You go out of the bathroom, excuse me that I'm giving that example. 5 times a day. 5 times a day, you have a minute to meditate on the great wisdom how Hashem created the human body. And look what the blessing is saying. If one of them should chas v'shalom open or close, I can live for 1 hour. Unbelievable. You know when a baby's in the mother's womb, all the holes are sealed and all what's sealed is open. And when the baby comes out to life, the nostrils open, the ears open, the behind, everything opens. What's supposed to be open is sealed in the stomach. And in the stomach, what's supposed to be sealed is all open. Nevertheless, look at that. What great reason. You know that most of the diseases, I will blame most of the disease in our generation is from food, from nutrition. But the majority of them is because of the toxins that are in your body. If you know how to release the toxins from your body, shouldn't be any diseases. So here for you another mantra. This is what we repeat every day. Why? Because if you say it the right way, you listen to what you say. Most people don't listen to what they say, so it's worthless. When was the last time that you listened to what you say while you're praying? Now listen, I know I also struggle with prayers. You don't listen to every word. You go through it. It's 45 minutes that you did the same thing yesterday and the day before. But the trick here is to take a paragraph out of that prayer. If you can do the whole thing, great. But if not, take one paragraph that you really meditate on the words, that you listen to the words. All the words are unbelievable. If you do that every day, you'll find out genius in the words that our sages put in the prayers. When you're doing it every day, I understand, it's autopilot. I told you that for many years, I would say in the afternoon prayer, Ashrei Yoshvei V'techa, I said Ashrei Yoshvei V'techa off by heart. Maybe 5 years. Right? One time, I don't know what happened. I opened the Siddur. You know what happened? What I figured out? The whole time that I was saying it off by heart, I missed one word. I missed a word. Maybe 5 years. I thought I'm so great because I say it off by heart. But I missed a word. The whole time I missed a word. It's almost like trying to open a safe with 9 digits and you miss 1 digit. The safe will not open. Why is it not open? Well, you missed a digit. You have to listen to what you're saying. That will awaken in you unbelievable levels of emunah. I told you that Avraham Avinu taught us that when we say the Birkat Hamazon, the blessing after eating, that's a remedy to strengthen the emunah. That's what Avraham Avinu used. You have problems with your trust and your belief, say Birkat Hamazon every day. Assuming that you are saying it every day, when was the last time you actually listened to the words that you're saying? You just say it fast because you want to finish already. I also say it fast. But I try to say it slow because when you listen to the words, you're like, wow, it's unbelievable. Master of the universe, Hazanu Farnes Lakol. He supports and gives and feeds everyone. So what do I need to worry about my parnasah? My livelihood? And many other things. You listen to what you're saying, wow, suddenly the words become very valuable. That's the first thing you need to do. The next thing you need to do is learning. What is exactly the learning? I'm not telling you now to learn math. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm telling you when you learn, now you learn. If you listen to me you will probably know what I'm about to tell you, that every time when we learn something, I come to the end of the class and I tell you, what's the action you take from that? It's very nice to learn lofty things. What do you take from what we just learned? Right? And I always quote, Ha'maaseh hu ha'ikar, right? It's a Mishnah, famous Mishnah. The action is what counts. Gadol ha-Talmud ha'mavi lidei maaseh. When is the Talmud, the learning, great? Is when you're able to bring it forth to action. If you didn't bring it to action, you wasted your time. So learning is what I just learned has to do with me. You made the effort. You came and you sat in the class. You need to come to a conclusion. What is all this got to do with me? And it doesn't even matter if it's in a class. You open the book, you learn something. You close the book. The Ramban says in his letter, every time you get up from learning, think how you can apply it into your life. You know the letter of the Ramban, Igeret Ramban? I told you to read it at least once a week. Not that I said it. It says in the Igeret Ramban, read it every once a week. Genius. 2 pages. That's what it is. And he tells you, Bechol Pam Shetakum Min HaSefer, every time you finish learning, see how you can apply it into your life. Most people learn, they nod. I told you, many years ago, I lived in America. I had a Chihuahua on my dashboard that every time I stopped, went like this. He told me, you're right. You're right. I call it the Chihuahua syndrome. People sit in lectures. Now, you're all nodding now too. Okay. Nodding is worthless. What do you do with what I just told you? What do you do with what I just read? We read something. Our smart sages say, Gadol ha-Talmud ha'mavi lidei maaseh. If it didn't bring you into action, the learning is worthless. Same thing here. Whatever I learn, how do I apply it? Learn 10 minutes a day. You don't have to learn 2 hours or 20 hours a day. You do, but take 10 minutes a day and apply it. That's greater than learning 4 hours and ignoring what you just learned. And I told you not once and not twice, I see sometimes people that learn for hours. Still no refinement. No sensitivity to other people's needs. And you learn Torah all day long. Didn't make a mensch. So what did the Torah do? I told you already, the point of Amalek, one of our greatest enemies, Amalek comes from the word in Hebrew, limlok. Limlok means to separate. Like the Kohen used to use his fingers to, when he would sacrifice a bird, to separate the head from the bird. Limlok et harosh. That's Amalek. Amalek wants to separate between the head and the heart. That's what he does. Asher karcha baderech. That he cools you down. You're sitting now in a great lecture, you are inspired, you go out. Don't need to be that excited. Relax. That's Amalek. He wants to separate what's in your mind from your heart. That's why the Torah tells you, Machot imche, you have to completely obliterate the Amalek. You have to cut him off. Because Amalek will chop off the connection between your mochin, your intellect, to your heart, to your midot. Therefore, when we want to conclude, according to Rambam, the first mitzvah is the first commandment, Anochi Havaya Elokecha, I am the Lord your God, is that I need to lida et Hashem, I need to feel Hashem in my life. Not to know, not to believe, not to think, to feel it. With the good and the bad, but Hashem is constantly around me. Umelo chol haaretz kevodo. Every space in the world, Hashem is there. But I need to feel it. That's what Hashem is telling me in the first commandment. Before you don't kill anyone, before you don't commit adultery, before you don't honor your parents, first know that I am everything. Anochi, Havaya, Elokecha, all the levels of godly revelation. How do you do that? But by strengthening your emunah. Your emunah, your belief in Hashem has to be absolute. That even in the times of weakness, times of despair, bad times, you feel Hashem around you constantly. And that can only be dependent on us. Only we can do that.